Stormwater Committee meeting. Welcome, everybody. It's a great day for stormwater outside, right? Okay. All right, so we got several preliminary items out of business items we need to get out of the way this morning. And if I guess we're waiting on another panel member to see if we're going to have a quorum for the first case. So we may move the first case back to the second case, just to give you all a little heads up. So, because we got to have 4 members who can vote on the issue. All right, so our first item of business this morning is to review and approve the December 2nd, 2021 minutes and associated decision letters, since we didn't meet in January. So does anybody have any edits, amendments, corrections, adjustments to the minutes or decision letters? And if you don't, if we could entertain passing that, or addressing that decision in one motion, that's always welcome. All right. Are you pulling your mic down, Madam Counsel, for a reason? Okay. All right.
So if somebody is recusing themselves, they still count for purposes of a quorum? But you can't take a vote unless there is a quorum. So I think the problem is solved, but for different reasons. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Always good to know. All right, so we have a motion on the floor to approve the minutes and decision letters as presented by staff. So is there a second? All right, Stokes seconds. Any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. So we can't vote unless we have a quorum. That's the bottom line.
Yes, but
okay.
if one member is here but recusing themselves, they do still count for purposes of quorum.
So does that mean we can? That means we can vote with 3 members? Yeah. Okay. All right, sorry, that was not obviously clear to me at the moment. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into our first case, Century Farms. If you want to come on up. So I want to give you a little bit of coaching about the mics. When you speak, if you'll just press the mic once, it'll light up red. Try not to press it twice or it'll kind of mess up the system. And then you'll just press it once to turn it off. After the staff reads the opening legal statement and the overview of the case, I'm going to ask someone to introduce themselves, introduce their other resource people that may be speaking to the proposal. We'll open it up for a public hearing for people to comment for and against, and then we'll close the public hearing, and then the committee will debate, and then we may come back to you with questions. But you'll basically have about 10 minutes to present your proposal. All right?
And Chairman, I need to recuse myself.
All right, Ms. Stokes is going to recuse herself. All right. Mr. Bowman, if you want to introduce the legal statement, and then whoever's going to introduce the case, we'll get started with that. So.
The opening statement to the applicant. If you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Stormwater Management Committee, you may appeal the decision by filing for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the committee's decision. You are advised to seek the independent advice of legal counsel to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been satisfied. Case number 1 on the agenda is case 2021-00017, Century Farms Development, Parcel 12, at 0 Cane Ridge Parkway. APNs are 174-000, 26400, and 174-000, 26500. Inspector is Sean Herman, Council District 32, Joy Stiles. Applicant's request, disturbance of wetland buffers and wetland removal. Appellant is Century Farms, LLC, represented by Michael Pigg of Barge Design Solutions. Comments, stormwater staff, no comment provided. Codes, no comment provided. Planning and Greenways also had no comment provided.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bowman. So if you'd like to begin your presentation, I'll start a clock. If you're getting close, I'll give you a 2-minute and a 1-minute warning, just with 2 and 1.
Sure. All right.
And then we'll open up the public hearing. Thank you.
Good. My name is Michael Pigg. I'm with Barge Design Solutions. I am the engineer on this project, and I've got my environmental expert, Sarah Samaray, with BDY, and she is going to present the project.
Good morning. So we are requesting a variance for wetland impacts measuring 0.28 acres and a wetland buffer disturbance. The wetland buffer measures 0.6 acres. So we're looking at a 0.88 acre impact for the wetlands and their buffers. In December, what we proposed to do was plant 2 reforestation areas next to the project, measuring 0.92 acres. But we realized there were concerns that we had the wetland and buffer impacts, so we need to help improve the wetlands, preferably on-site or as close to the site as we could get. So now what we are doing is proposing wetland buffer enlargement of 1.76 acres. And in 2015, do they have the exhibit, the map I'm looking at, or no? Yes. Okay, this is our revised mitigation plan. So in 2015, BDY delineated there we go. So wetlands along Old Franklin Road to the south there. So these wetlands, and what we're proposing to do now is to enlarge those wetland buffers with 1.76 acres of planting. That would be a 2-to-1 ratio for the disturbance that we are proposing. And this will directly enhance those wetlands which are adjacent to the site and downstream, and is of course in the metro jurisdiction, because we are also purchasing wetland mitigation credits in the amount of 0.67 acres as required by TDEC and the Corps, but understand, that may not be within metro's jurisdiction, but this is. And any other comments? And I guess one thing I will add too is with the 1.76 acres plus the 0.67 acres of credits equals approximately a 2.8-to-1 ratio we're proposing.
Okay, is that it? Nice and efficient. All right, we love that. Thank you. Okay, so at this time, we'll open the public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak for or against the current proposal. If you want to do that, you'll come up to the mic, you'll introduce yourself, give us your address, and comment for 2 minutes. So is anyone here to do that? All right, seeing none. Do we have any emails, letters, council representative comments?
No letters, emails, council representative comments on this case.
All right, thanks, sir. Okay, so not having any additional public comment, we'll close the public hearing and we'll open it up for the committee's comments and questions. I'll kick it off with just a couple of clarifying questions that are kind of key touch points of these types of considerations. Is this a natural or a human-created wetland that you're proposing to disturb, to the best of your knowledge?
The wetland that we're proposing to disturb, it's an old farm pond wetland that's further impounded by a farm road, so it is a man-made wetland.
Okay, all right. And you mentioned your core and state permit and mitigation requirements. You have that guidance in writing. That's just not a verbal discussion.
Oh, yeah. So we have received our TDEC permit, and we are required to purchase the wetland mitigation credits before beginning the work for this.
Excellent.
The core permit has gone through public notice. We received some comments, but we've been able to address those. So we have not have it in hand, but it's closer.
Okay, excellent. Okay. All right, so that's the kind of preparation that really helps this process be considered a little more objectively and a little more collaboratively as well. So we do like to try to sync with federal and state, at least in the process. We don't always agree with them, but in this case, sounds like all touch points have been made. So, all right, are there any other questions or comments from any other committee member?
So the wetland buffer that you are adding to kind of make up the difference on Franklin Road, is that a natural buffer area or is that one that you all created? I think you mentioned that you all had created that previously or enhanced it.
So the wetland buffer right now, the wetland buffer was protected but not enhanced. So now it's just being able to naturalize and it's doing okay. And so what we're proposing to do is to go outside of that and just increase that area because we don't want to get in the buffer to disturb it because it's functioning now. We're just going to make it larger.
Okay, thanks.
All right, is staff satisfied with the tree selection and then the botanical specifications of their mitigation proposal?
I believe the selection just references the buffer mitigation or the buffer reestablishment document. So those have been species that have been vetted through TDEC. They weren't prescriptive as to exactly what they were planting.
Y'all want to illuminate us on that?
Yes, that's based upon availability of what they have. So what we will choose is species that would be suitable for the wetland buffer and just to see what they have in stock because we didn't want to promise something that they oftentimes run out of stock on certain trees. We didn't want to promise that, but we will use what has been approved and we'll choose wetland appropriate species as we can.
So I assume that means native species?
Yes, definitely native.
Okay. All right, so I know that's in our spec, so, okay, great.
Mr. Chairman, if
Yes,
I
sir.
might ask,
Mr. Hunt.
in the event this is approved, how would this be communicated to staff as far as the plan being approved and then ultimately inspectors verifying that this plan of record was installed in the field?
We have proposed to submit annual reports. We will monitor it for 2 years, and we will ensure a 75% survival rate, and we will present that report to Metro. Does that?
I guess I was talking about more on the front end of the project when it's being reviewed, and then when it's being built, as staff is making sure the condition of the variance has been met by what's been done. Does that make sense? So you've gotten this plan. Rebecca, if you'll scroll back down.
Well, actually, this is the part that I believe they're going to include on a plan to explain to whomever is reviewing it. And it's that the spacing of the seedlings and then just show the area instead of little itty bitty dots, I believe is what they were going for with the plan.
Okay. I guess, Mr. Chairman, the main thing we're trying to address is to make sure, because sometimes there's some lag between when these variances are adopted and when staff are either reviewing the plans and then reviewing them in the field, that there's some continuity between when the variance is adopted and the conditions and that it's actually been met. So we would just ask you to be attentive to that, obviously in all your submittals and in working with staff as the project's being built, recognizing that the condition in this plan of record is what we'll be looking at.
So
Okay.
you all agree to do that?
Yeah.
Particularly if we make that a condition of a potential motion?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, but just a question. I don't think it's that important with how these are next to in a recently improved road, but how do you document long-term these varying width buffers? Because if people identify the perimeter of wetlands, then they would just offset it 25 feet or, 50 feet. But is that something that's just on the approved plans forever, or is it something that gets recorded somewhere?
So
How would the state know or the Public Works know if they needed to widen the?
I maybe can answer that if I might.
Sure.
It's a great segue to my question as we start to walk through these things. Buffers are now handled by our SEM inspectors in perpetuity. So when this project goes through and the plan gets approved and it gets put into our system, this buffer will be on the plan, and hopefully it'll be in a manner that when those inspectors go out, they'll be looking at that too, which is why it's important that it gets on the grading permit approved plan and why that the plan of record is accurate. So our SEM inspectors are the ones who watch buffers. In this case, obviously, they're a little close to the road. I guess you've considered sightline issues, but that is the group within our section that looks at those sorts of things. So it is something that gets looked at in perpetuity, once approved.
And hopefully it'll have signage along it too.
So they're not asking to avoid signage, right? That's still part of this?
It should be on the long-term maintenance.
I'm not aware that's part of the request. Logan?
I don't think it has to be, isn't it required?
I don't know if it's on there.
All right, so we all agree to put the appropriate signage to,
We'd be happy to add the signage.
okay, all right. I just thought that was standard, so, all right, okay. All right, are we at a place where we're ready for a motion? And I'd just like to encourage any motion that's presented to try to integrate the previous discussions as conditions.
Make a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve. The applicant has agreed to several conditions. Would you consider that to be part of your motion as well? Okay, all right, so we have a written variance proposal with conditions that the applicant be diligent about ensuring that the proper documentation and grading permit and plans of record and other materials properly delineate the site. There's going to be signage on the site. All right. So do you accept that as a friendly amendment? All right, okay. All right, that's okay, all right. All right, so we have a motion that is properly amended. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, a motion has been made and properly seconded twice. All right, so any discussion on the motion? Does everybody understand the motion as presented and as amended? All right, seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, thank you. And
Thank you for your time and
we'll clarify the details in the decision letter in the minutes. So, okay.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, so our next case is Brookhalla Road. Well, we'll see. Sometimes it's not up to us or you all. Sometimes the technology takes over. It certainly won't be personal, at least not on our end. So. Okay, so we're going to go through the same process. You all heard the opening legal statement. You understand your rights of appeal. Okay, all right, so Mr. Bowman, if you'll introduce the case, we'll go through the same process.
Case number 2 on the agenda is case 2021-00018, 721 Brookhalla Road, at 721 Brookhalla Road. APN is 115-03-009100. Inspector is Kimberly Hayes. Council District 23, Tom Druffel. Applicant's request, floodway buffer disturbance and continuous mowing and maintenance of the floodway buffer. Appellant is Lawrence Ritter Properties, LLC, represented by Matthew Taylor of SEC Incorporated. Comments. Stormwater staff requests an undisturbed buffer adjacent to the stream. Code said no comment provided. Planning and greenways, no comment provided.
All right, so are you Mr. Paylor? Am I saying that right?
No, sir. Josh Ritter
Josh Ritter, okay.
with Lawrence Ritter.
So who's Mr. Paylor?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is Matthew Skelton. Is that what you said? I'm sorry.
The case was introduced as a,
I don't know where, he provided our engineering,
Okay.
but my partner Eric Lawrence and I are owners of Lawrence Ritter Properties that own the property.
okay, I just want to see if that person referenced was here today, so.
No, he was not.
Okay, great, all right. So if you'll introduce yourself and everyone at the table, and then we'll start the clock when you get ready for your 10-minute.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you all for having us out here. My name is Josh Ritter, and my partner Eric Lawrence are Lawrence Ritter Properties. The home is in Lawrence Ritter Homes, and then Alex Holman is one of our associates within our firm, and then Matthew Skelton provided a lot of the civil, or the, environmental engineering with the SEC. So he's here to support as well. So I'll try and be quick, but thank you again for your time. As you can see, we purchased this property several months ago, and unfortunately snowed out last month, but are grateful to be here. And I suppose a little bit of description of the property. It has an existing home on it that currently abuts essentially the floodway that is in place, and there was really zero attention to detail as far as mitigation efforts, stormwater buffers, and it had 1,500 square feet of impervious structure within Zone 1 and another 1,200 square feet of impervious structure within Zone 2. And our desire was to seek a variance requesting what we saw really as an improvement from a stormwater concern, and to say, okay, we want to remove the existing, put in mitigation plans, and build back better, a solution that really seemed to work. And so, we understand obviously there are countless iterations of design, where you put the house, but, looking at the property itself, you can see it's somewhat oddly shaped. And as you go back to the rear of the property, really there's two wet weather conveyances that converge, and then from that confluence, it's about 16 feet to the edge of the property, where there is a stream too in the very rear of the property. That's really a wooded area that we have friends that are neighbors, their kids play back there. And so, our desire was not to encroach too much upon the setbacks, the rear wooded area, and the wet weather conveyances that had been determined and had concurrence from TDEC. And so instead, we're here to ask for about 800 square feet of encroachment within Zone 2 for structure, and then in addition, mowing and maintenance, limited within Zone 1 as well. Along with that, we also went forward, we worked with the landscape architect to design a mitigation plan, and believe we come up with a great solution that we can build something, address some of the concerns that may have existed previously but were never handled in a home that was built perhaps 60 years ago. So I suppose that's essentially it. We received staff comments going back, I guess it was about 2 months ago, and to our landscape plan. And the first was a simple addressing of what the tree inventory would be that we'd plant. And so we diversified what the landscape architect had originally drawn up and presented a new plan, and hopefully that meets y'all's concerns. And then additionally, there was a request for a stream buffer, if you will, and we've had our engineer draw up a plan where, if there's a 30-foot stream buffer from the edge of the stream, we come nowhere within reach of that, as really our intent had been to stay without the 50-foot buffer that is the Zone 1 buffer for the floodway. So we're happy to address any other concerns, but I think that's generally it. We felt like this was an attractive plan, and hopefully is something that works for y'all as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ritter. Okay, so at this time, we'll open up the public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak in favor or against the current proposal. Anyone here to do that? That's a pretty good guess when only Metro staff and one guy I know is in the back, so, all right. He used to be up here, so he learned it the right way, I guess. All right, so do we have any emails, letters, council representative comments?
No emails, letters, council representative comments.
All right, so having no additional public input, we'll close the public hearing and open it up for committee review and conversation and debate. I'll start off with a couple of clarifying questions. One, can you put up a satellite image of this site? So that's oriented a little bit different than the plan we saw. It's just flipped, isn't it? All right. Do you got any? The rear of their proposed house is right at that property corner. Okay. Do we have any street level views of of the buffer? Any Google Street views that might show us what the buffer, okay. All right. All righty. Okay, so what efforts did you make to try to avoid the intrusion of development into the Zone 2? Did you go through any other iterations to try to avoid the impact?
Sure. So we looked, and if you look at the rear of the property, right, and between the setbacks on the sides, and then the encroachments, which at the time when we were going through iterations of design, where we would place the home, the intent really was to protect from those wet weather conveyances, and find a spot that protected those and that stream as well, and then also was at an elevation that was 4+ feet above base flood. So we received a base flood elevation certificate prior to build, and the elevation then gets lower back there as well. And so we went through several different iterations of how the house could fit on the property, taking into account street setbacks, side setbacks, rear setbacks, the existing 4 wet weather conveyances or streams on the property, and I guess our primary concern was moving back off of UN Branch, but then also trying to take all those other considerations into account.
So did you approach Metro about trying to adjust the setbacks with the lot line, the footprints of existing homes, give you some flexibility with planning maybe to adjust some of the setbacks and sort of move closer to the street? Or
we have not.
Okay.
And looking, the setback that I guess we took more into account was the side setback. The neighbor's fence is 1.2 feet on our side of it, and we're trying to kind of consider everyone else as well. But that was really more of the issue. Then as we went back, the greater issue was the wet weather conveyances in the stream back there as well, trying to steer clear of that. And we have friends that are the third house on Georgetown that their kids play in the woods that are back there, and the what are wet weather conveyances now, but the streams, and it is a very protected, quiet, woodsy area. It's a thicket, but it's a nice spot.
Yeah, I guess our challenge is that we're a little limited by hardship, and hardship dictates that when the ordinance was passed, that the lot and the associated buffer have some type of hydrogeomorphic or topographic characteristics that the ordinance could not have foreseen being unique or different. And so we have a little more flexibility when the physical or hydrological conditions are extremely unique to Davidson County, kind of an anomaly almost. So typically when we've approved intrusions into Zone 2, it's usually been like a corner of the building or a deck or a patio, and there's been some mitigation to offset that. We've been a little more hesitant to grant just an expansion of a significant portion of the house, an extra bedroom, those kind of things typically have had a harder time getting approval, as well as mowing the Zone 1. So that's pretty significant change to what the buffer ordinance is trying to achieve, which is a bushy, woolly, filtering last line of defense for the stream to kind of hold it stable from flood events and from erosive factors. That dense vegetation typically protects the integrity of the stream against. So that's typically the kind of challenges that we face when considering these kinds of proposals. Just kind of make you aware of that. So.
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
So I'll just open it up at this point to other committee members to comment and weigh in as well. So.
I'm a numbers person, so can you repeat? I heard what you said, but so there is some, it's an existing structure. How much, did you say it encroached the floodway? Like, just by area, how much was previously impacted? How much you now impacting in zone 1 and zone 2?
So
Are you,
the existing structure, as is, 1,418 square feet in Zone 1, 1,236 square feet in Zone 2, for 2,654 total square feet that are encroached in the buffer as a whole. Our plan, moving it back, was to have 0 square feet in Zone 1 and 873 square feet in Zone 2. So it is the front right corner of the building that, again, kind of came down from elevations and all these different considerations to have a little bit of encroachment, but ultimately try and improve. So.
What would you say would be the net difference between what was there before and what's there now?
Well, that's about a 66% reduction, so at 1,800 square feet.
Okay.
Logan, is the dry ditch a blue line as marked, or?
Part of it is ephemeral wet weather conveyance, and then there's a little bit that's a stream. There's a hydrologic determination in the application package.
Yes, so there's a confluence that's 16 feet roughly off of the edge of the property that forms a stream that Matt could possibly speak to better back there. But then, as you can see, 2 wet weather conveyances that form that.
well, I guess just current thoughts. I mean, I certainly appreciate the improvements you're making. I guess I have a concern about any activity in the zone 1, and you are asking for a mowing variance, right? Am I understanding that right?
That's correct.
So given the improvement of over the old intrusion versus the new one, you are reducing the amount of square feet in the buffer. What mitigation are you proposing for still being in the buffer? Do you have any additional mitigation that you're proposing or that you might be willing to propose? And would you also be willing to not mow the zone 1 and just leave that as a vegetative buffer?
So to answer your first question, we've proposed plantings. Landscape architect, drew up a mitigation plan that we included. That's additional plantings and plantings of native grasses within those areas as well. We had, in response to the staff comments, where you get beyond, I suppose our response was, to what would have been mowing within maybe that second 25 feet of the zone 1, which had been our request. The staff comments originally came back and said, okay, can we have a stream buffer that really would have, reduced the amount of mowing within that zone 1. So we certainly agreed to that. And then I suppose we can absolutely look at saying, we can not mow within the floodway within zone 1 and plant native grasses there instead.
So what does staff think?
What is the no-mow area now on this plan?
As existing?
Yes, as the one that's up right now.
So, currently they mow to the edge of the creek.
I'm sorry, your proposed
So
no-mow plan.
our request
Yeah.
was to mow the second, 50% of zone 1, and then
So
plant and mitigate within the first 50% of zone 1.
So you have a no-mow zone right now that goes about halfway through the zone 1 buffer?
Correct.
Correct. We should probably show that on the plans.
We can amend that.
Yeah, definitely. But it's assuming that's acceptable, right? So I guess the question I'm asking is, what's ideal given that they are improving some of the disturbance in the zone 2. They're reducing their footprint over the previous footprint. I should say, we're not really gaining anything because the ordinance envisions updating the quality of the buffer as development changes over time. So previous footprints were kind of grandfathered in. And so ideally, you want to see the buffers go back to their original desired width because that's better for water quality, it's better for absorption of floodwater. We gain lots of benefits when we do that. But we realize that there are practical realities to trying to help the community redevelop and trying to be reasonable. And so if we can get additional gain, even though we may not get an ideal gain, it's better than where we were. So minimizing impacts to the Zone 1 is usually kind of our first priority. We just try to leave the Zone 1 completely alone in terms of future disturbance. So we want to enhance it, improve it naturally, and not mow it. The Zone 2, we want to mitigate what we're losing, even though technically we are gaining something over what was grandfathered. We do still need to mitigate that because the community is losing some benefit that we could have gained. So I guess what I'm asking staff is, how can we technically help them improve the Zone 1 without mowing, and how can we mitigate the Zone 2?
Mr. Chairman, I can say over the years where there have been unique cases that involved probably past uses and they're trying to reconcile the current regs, the committee has landed on a reduced Zone 1, no disturb, trying to protect at least 15 feet comes to mind, maybe a little bit more, just adjacent to the creek to afford some protection. I know that's been an option that's been utilized before. I admittedly don't know the particulars on this one, but that would afford some protection to the stream and get a little bit ahead of where it sounds like it is now if they're mowing right up to the top of the bank.
And I will add that we do have an internal policy developed for residential properties that are adjacent to existing homes that continue to mow, and that policy is, this is probably where Michael got the 15 feet. If you only have a one-zone 30-foot buffer, then it's 15 feet. If you have a two-zone buffer, it is the floodway plus half of the Zone 1. So we're always asking for them to not mow half of the Zone 1. And in this case, if they didn't have a home in the Zone 2 buffer, they wouldn't even be here. We allow for that amount of disturbance just at staff approval level.
Okay, so how wide is the Zone 1 now from top of bank to the 50
It varies.
feet?
It looks like they have a pretty wide, over 50-foot floodway towards the front of the property, and then the 50-foot Zone 1. But then as you, and we count the floodway as part of Zone 1. Okay. And then as you go up the property, the floodway is lessened, so it looks like in that area it might be 70 feet.
So right now they're proposing not to mow half of the Zone 1.
Half of the established Zone 1, correct. It's just not
So
shown
that'd
on
be
the plan.
25 feet that would be left vegetated and 25 feet
And the
that
full
would be
floodway.
mowed, which is 10 feet more than the 15 feet you normally ask for.
No, the 15 feet we normally ask for is if there's only a 30-foot buffer.
Okay, all right, okay, good. Okay, just trying to understand why something that's not completely the same.
If I may to clarify, the floodway kind of spills out into the front yard up against Brookhalla Road. And then the defined floodway follows essentially the bank of the creek on our side of the property as you get, and then spills over into the other neighbor's property. And so from the edge of the creek to the edge of what we had deemed the buffer, it's wider, at the front of the property, obviously, because there is actual floodway there. But then as you go further back, really, and that was kind of the question, when asked, okay, can we give a 30-foot buffer to the creek? Well, really, there's no real floodway back in the rear of the property on our side of that creek.
So the relevance of your comment was that it's 50% is normally normal. 15 feet of 30 is 50%, so 25 of 50 is 50%. So what we're dealing with here is something that's compatible with previous practice. Okay, all right, that's the part I want to make sure we all understood, so. Yeah, that helps a lot. All right, so I guess what confused me initially about it is when we don't get any staff comment, when it says no staff comment, and then we hear there's been a lot of conversation that matches previous practice, then it makes more sense. You see what I'm saying?
Sometimes y'all help educate us on what our comments should be.
Yeah. I guess there's a lot of assumption that goes in with the phrase "no staff comment." That's okay. It doesn't mean you all haven't talked to them quite a bit about past practice and policy. Okay, so it sounds like you're pretty close to what is common practice, but it's not ideal for the resource. So what does the rest of the committee think?
So I have an idea and a possible suggestion. Since the ordinance, we want to make things better, and you are, in fact, trying to improve the current situation. But I guess one question I have is, could we, possibly request, some additional plantings at a nearby park or somewhere else that would be public space to kind of get to that, making it equalize the improvements to what it should be, since it may not be possible on the property, to kind of offset some of the disturbance that would still be happening.
Traditionally, we try to limit mitigation to the property, to what they can control. What we have recommended in the past is for them to do their plantings along the do not disturb line. So it creates both kind of a visual and physical barrier, because we know people will probably get in there and try to mow it at some point. And so that's sometimes what we've asked them to do with the plantings, instead of place them into the area that's going to grow up and get weedy and invasive ridden and all those things.
So it sounds like the solution might be just to plant more densely in the 25 feet
That we're planning to mow, not. I'm thinking now.
You mentioned you might be willing not to mow the zone one and just make the buffer healthy there. Is that amenable to you?
We would, I suppose, because Zone 1 extends all the way across the property, because the floodway comes through the front, we would prefer to mow a little bit of the front yard.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a very defined term, right? But we would, we would absolutely be willing to, and that was when the staff commented regarding, maybe a stream buffer instead of looking at the floodway that's in the front, because you just can't really solve for that, I suppose, crossing through the front, but absolutely would be open to doing more, to plant more.
So what if we did this? What if we allowed them to mow the 25 feet in the front and then completely vegetate the 50 feet on the side?
And I will
Or whatever
also
they
note-
can on the side. Looks like it may not be quite 50 feet on the side.
It wouldn't be quite 50 feet.
And we do allow for you to mow sight lines as well from your driveway, so you wouldn't be expected to have that buffer come all the way up to
Would
the
that be
road.
amenable?
We can do that.
Okay, all right. Does that sound like a good compromise, folks?
Well, and to that point, I would suggest shifting a lot of the plantings that are concentrated in the front. You can always plant more, but the required plantings somewhat over to the side within that 25 feet next to the floodway.
Mm-hmm.
That way it, more delineates the initial 25 feet that you're not going to mow and leaves open the rest, because ultimately whoever buys the house, I mean, they're going to do it.
Right.
They're going to mow it.
Yeah, we're looking for a
So-
long-term fix too.
And, but a couple other things, the preserving the trees in the rear really resonated with me, even though that is a wet weather conveyance, just because I think if they reshape the house, it would get more into those back trees, and existing trees provide a lot of value in my opinion. And also it appears that complete removal of the Zone 1 has a lot of value. The encroachment in Zone 2 appears to be where the existing house is completely. And as Rebecca was saying, if you did a partial reduction to 25 feet versus 50 feet and did your Zone 2 buffer off of that, you'd essentially have the whole thing out. And so I guess there's two perspectives. One is a buffer encroachment, or the second could be a buffer reduction just along a part of the property. But
Does that feel like a motion?
If staff might, we would ask that a revised plan of record be part of the conditions that reflect the committee's decision.
All right. What did I hit it twice? All right, so typically these kind of things result in a motion. Turn on your mic there, pal.
So we're looking at a motion to decrease the Zone 1 in the front of the house to 25 foot, tapering back to 50 when approaching the side to the rear, correct? Okay. Can that be the motion?
Yes, sir. And introduce yourself, please.
Gabriel Moore, Metro Water. There was one question that we had on stream number 2 in the back, which I know you've got, according to your HD, 16 feet of stream. Is that buffer on that stream incorporated into the buffer for the larger stream?
It would have its own separate buffer. So we have, when we originally submitted this, we didn't have the determination made yet, and so where the exact buffer would need to be. But we would include, we won't touch that back in the back, to be clear. We would include a buffer there. That's very wooded back in the back as is, and so we envision that.
I guess my only comment would be if there is additional buffer, I know there's buffer for that stream, that's 16 feet. It may already be incorporated, swallowed up by the larger buffer is what I'm saying, but just make sure it's shown in the plans.
Okay, it is not. I suppose on Metro maps, it looks like there is a buffer included there, but in these plans, I don't believe it would be covered by the existing buffers.
Gotcha.
Not quite.
Sure. Well, just whatever that is, that should be incorporated in would be my comment.
We'll do it.
Thank you.
All right, Trey, did you get that?
Somewhat.
Okay. Okay.
So we're looking at reducing the zone 1 to 25 foot along the front of the home, going to 50 foot along the side to the rear to incorporate within the existing rear buffer, and to provide a revised plan, basically like an as-built, or a revised plan to indicate the changes and identifying all of the buffers.
All right, everybody understand the motion?
Well, for clarification, that
Please
would
edit
leave the house encroaching on the side if you leave it at 50 feet until you pass the rear corner. So I don't know if we should extend the 25 all the way along the side of the house before it jumps back to 50, and then shift all
That would make
plantings in
sense.
that first 25 feet.
That would make sense and be more aesthetic too.
Right, shift the resubmit a landscape plan that shifts all the plantings into that first 25 feet. And then you can always plant more if you want, but.
Yeah, ideally, you know, these buffers can add a lot of value as landscaping to your home. You know, we want you to have a safe sight line getting in and out of the driveway, but we want the buffer to be optimized as much as possible. And you can do that by adding a lot of value to what you plant there to add value to your home and your lot with aesthetic landscaping as well as native or riparian landscaping. Okay, so you want to restate that?
Okay. Jay, you want to co-sponsor this? Okay, so we are going to start with a 25-foot width buffer in the
No
front.
mowing in 25 feet.
In the front of the home, continuing to the rear of the home, tapering back to 50 foot to the rear buffer along the property, and identifying all of the zone 1 and buffer area on a revised plan.
That
With
captured.
moving the plantings along the front.
As needed.
Along the, in the first 25 foot from the buffer. However you want to put it.
All right. Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
All right, we have a motion. Okay, so typically with this type of generally stated guidance, we'll work out the details in the decision letter and with staff in their communications with you all. And if there's any misunderstandings, you know, they should be able to work it out, but if you can't work out the details, just come back, we'll figure it out, so.
Sure.
All right.
Sounds great.
Okay, so, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
Looks like Mike wants to say something.
Maybe one thing that would help during the process, does the committee envision the number of plantings in the plan of record to stay the same as it is now, as it's moved across the property?
I think we're assuming it to go up because, they're covering more area. It doesn't sound like it's going to be an even exchange between what they're reducing in the front and what they're adding to the back. But I don't know that we have any way of knowing without having it all measured, and we're not going to be able to measure it today, right? Yeah. So, I know you all don't like the ambiguous motion, but, you know, if you can't measure it today, we got two options, is let y'all work it out or have a deferral.
And I would say we'll get our landscape architect on it right away and say, you know, also what works from a design perspective and fitting in, you know, we are out to improve it too. So we'll get with them and make sure that they get.
Yeah, I think the clear message is to optimize the side buffer and limit it to 25 feet in the front.
Sure.
Okay. Is that fair, Mr. Hunt?
Yeah, you might could just clarify it something equal to or greater than the plan of record number of plantings.
Okay, perfect. All right, so to follow this through proper parliamentary procedure, that's a perfect way to do it. Okay, so the first motion has been withdrawn because it wasn't properly seconded. So would you like to restate your motion with the new information? And now I understand Mr. Hunt's hesitation, so go
With
ahead.
guidance, of course. Okay, the motion for in the front yard, the zone 1 to be 25 foot along the front of the home, alongside to the rear of the home, at which time the 50 tapers to 50 foot for the mowing, correct?
Yes.
All right. And the plantings that are in the current plan to be redistributed along those first 25 foot at an amount greater than or equal to the plan of record.
That may be the best collaborative motion we've ever had, so.
Okay, I'm gonna stop.
All right. And you're including the buffer in the back too, right? Because and the revised plan showing the buffer.
With a plan, revised plan showing the new buffer connecting to the rear buffer.
Excellent. All right. So my new standard for motion is a smile from Mr. Hunt. So, all right. So, all right. So we have a motion. Is there a second? Everybody understand? All right. Motion been made and properly seconded. Everybody understand the motion? All right. We do have recordings, so we can go back and listen to it. And any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks for working with us.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay, so let's take a break. Say 5 minutes, and then we'll reconvene. Landings Lot C. So I'm going to ask Mr. Bowman were you here for the opening legal statement, Mr. Gangware? Do you know your rights of appeal? I do know you don't need to. Okay. All right. So we hope to handle this in such a way that an appeal will be unnecessary, regardless. All right. So we're going to have the opening description of the proposal, and then we'll open it up for Mr. Gangware to give us somewhere below a 10-minute overview, and then we'll go through the normal process.
Opening statement to the applicant. If you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Stormwater Management Committee, you may appeal the decision by filing for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the committee's decision. You are advised to seek the independent advice of legal counsel to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been satisfied. Case number 3 on the agenda is case 2022-00001, River North Landings Lot C at 0 Waterside Drive. APN is 08206009800. Inspector is Denise Johns. Council District 5, Sean Parker. Applicant's request, floodway buffer disturbance for a fire access road. Appellant is NRN Parcel C Owner LLC, represented by Kevin Gangaware, Civil Site Design Group. Comments, stormwater staff, no comment provided. Codes, no comment. Planning and greenways, no comment provided.
Okay, I guess I'm just eager to move us along. So, all right, Mr. Gangware, you know the routine.
Does that work? Okay. My name's Kevin Gangware. I'm with Civil Site Design Group, representing the project for MRP. This project is the next phase of the first phase of River North, called the Landings. We were in front of you a couple of years ago for the previous first phase of the Landings, which was disturbance of the floodway buffer, same type of issue. In this case, this is an existing old warehouse property. It's about 2.7 acres, and a little over 2.25 of the acres are completely paved and with a building on it. All of this property, previous to this development, drains directly to the river, untreated, from an industrial site. And as part of our project, we propose to eliminate all of the impervious area in the building and replace it with a new building that will be an apartment building with ground floor retail, commercial, which is required as part of the UDO overlay on this area, and underground parking, or below building parking at least. So as part of that, the western 25 feet of this property is the Zone 2 25-foot buffer. The designer of the building had laid the footprint out. So the footprint of that building is, mostly underground parking on the first floor with, again, ground floor retail along the streets, which is required by the UDO. And then, of course, as you know, we have proposed a park between these buildings and the river as part of the River North project. Of course, River North has been purchased by Oracle. So now Oracle is responsible for building the park between the building and the top of the bank of the river. So this area between our building and the river is going to become very active, relatively soon as Oracle does their design and starts construction. That is a commitment that they've made to the city on that, by the way, along with the pedestrian bridge that'll go over the river. So, and this property is right next to where the pedestrian bridge is proposed to land. Our client, and of course everybody on this side of the river, would like to be active on the west side of their buildings to basically, quote, spill out, onto the bank of the river and celebrate the river instead of turning our back to it. as we've done in other developments in the past in Nashville. So the positives of this project are that we're removing a significant amount of impervious area and untreated impervious area that's going straight to the river, and we're replacing that with brand-new building. The existing building's below the flood elevation, so we're taking that down and putting a new building. Of course, will be above the flood elevation. Our building, we carved out an area, a little U-shaped piece there on the west side that we will take the rooftops of this building to that point and create a bioretention that will treat the water. We've gotten pretty far through the design, and I've been working here in Nashville for 40 years, and typically the fire marshal has always required access for their fire trucks along the long side of the building. In this case, we actually have fire truck access on two sides of the building, both the east and the south side of the building. So we felt that we were completely covered. There's Joseph Allman's a new fire marshal, or new to that position probably in the past year or two. And so there are parts of the code that he sees and says, well, I see that I need 250-foot coverage to every part of the building. So he needs a fire truck within 250 feet of all parts of the building. If the building's sprinkled, that's actually 150 feet if it's not sprinkled. So that is what brought us here. We've proposed a very short fire truck access that would be in the edge of the buffer. And we would propose that to be grass pave, and we're pushing for that. And I think we were told by staff, hey, if it was grass pave, we wouldn't even need to come to this, that staff can approve that. Fire marshal doesn't like grass pave, so we're working, Roger Lindsay and Logan and I are working to try to understand what his opposition is to that and see if we can address that. So I feel, and Logan has touched base with him and got a relatively positive possibility that that might happen. I think this is a great test case, because ideally, if we can get him comfortable with that, then all projects that need a fire truck access can use grass pave, not just in the buffer or out of the buffer, but that then becomes, a more environmentally sensitive way to do fire lanes around the sides and the backs of the building, which apparently we're going to have to start doing more and more of those, and not be, impervious asphalt or concrete. So we're hopeful that that'll come, and then maybe this variance would not be needed at all, but nonetheless, we're here to ask for that. So we have a small fire truck access. We're asking or proposing for it to be pervious pavers. I think there's part of staff, Roger, rightfully so, says, hey, if that thing ever gets flooded, then those are going to get contaminated, and then they stop being, pervious. And we agree, but still willing to do pervious if that's something that you'll approve, or we'll do impervious if you prefer not to have pervious pavers. So that's where we are with this project. I'd love to talk to you about, give you any answers to any of the questions that you might have, but it's a very, very small area. We're taking out 2¼ acres of impervious area. The entire 25-foot buffer is about 9,000 square feet, and we're asking for pervious pavers on about 1,400 square feet of that 9,000. The rest of it we'll take out all the pavement, and we'll put back vegetation and trees, which is on the mitigation plan. So be glad to talk to you about any answers to any of your questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gangwer. All right, is anyone here? No. Do we have any letters, emails, or council representative communications? Unless we have a ghost in the room.
We did not have any letters, emails, the council conversations on this one.
Okay. All right, so with that, we'll close the public hearing. Mr. Gangward, or I guess Rebecca, can you show us where the pedestrian bridge hits this spot? That might help us understand
Kevin,
all
can you show
of
us
the
where
other.
The pedestrian bridge is going to hit the spot?
Where you have your cursor, is land that runs from the public road where your cursor is west towards the river. That all of that land for about a 50 or 100-foot width is part of the park. So the pedestrian would come to that road where she has her cursor now. That's where the pedestrian is proposed to land on the east bank of the river.
So your access road is to the right, the far right?
Yes, sir. And it
Okay.
comes off of, that L-shaped public access.
So if in considering the pervious pavers, I can understand that porous concrete would probably fail pretty quick from a high sediment flood flow over the top of it, but precast pavers with pretty large void spaces and a pretty deep wash subgrade, those generally seem to hold up pretty well with flooding, don't they, Michael? Or can they clog?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the elevations are. I think with any porous surface treatment, you want to avoid the shear stress of the turns, which unfortunately is what they've got here. I mean, there could be some other options like a small water quality swale or something that might give long-term functionality to this. I do know there have been some like stadiums across the country that have used a lot of grass pave for parking and things of that nature, but obviously a large fire truck is different than that. But, there would be some options, I think.
I'll also note that this isn't going to be a regulatory paver installation, so if it clogs long-term,
They have to.
we won't have SEM inspectors out there, making them get it unclogged.
So I'm assuming this is a fairly level surface that you're planning.
Yes,
There's
sir.
not any slope to it.
Very little slope. The 100-year flood elevation is 414.7, and the elevation of this will be 413 and a quarter. So we're very close to the 100-year flood elevation.
I mean, I'm wondering if some of the fire chief's objections related to grass pavers have to do with the fact that the structural component of a grass paver is pretty weak.
He commented on a project I had that that the people out there actually trying to fight the fire don't know that the grass is where they're supposed to drive.
Oh, okay.
And so, maybe he can, this is something new to me too. I was trying to hope to better sign it, to better identify it. But is the concrete area next to the building, could that somehow function as part of his drive?
Yeah.
Could it be elevated up a little bit?
Right. Thank you, Jay. It's basically proposed, that area is the outdoor seating for the adjacent restaurant. And our correspondence with the fire marshal is, delineation of where this is. Of course, we've seen photos, we can do, and we've done in the past, a hedgerow on both sides, that basically says, here's the path, certainly a sign. He also had mentioned that people end up putting dog parks over it or playgrounds over it, and then it just, whoever owns the property doesn't even realize that they're supposed to keep that area open. So again, I think with signage and hedges and things like that, I feel like we're probably going to get there with him. I mean, I think this is important enough to Stormwater that I think Stormwater may use some of their influence with the fire marshal to see if we can get this done. But we just can't say for sure. And they are designed for fire truck access. I mean, the grass pavers are.
That's where I first saw them used. But, yeah.
You just need to have enough base stone, and pavers would do a whole lot better than concrete, from my opinion, solely for what it's worth, just for maintenance, because you can remove them more easily and vac out the voids and do a thicker concrete band to lock them in place. But the other thing that jumped out at me was the sidewalk being proposed in pavers. I would actually think that triggers more maintenance in the future and would trigger more activity back there. And I'd almost rather see that as just standard concrete, just because that it would be more maintenance free and not require some sort of vac truck to get back there and clean it out if it ever gets clogged. So just a consideration, but.
And the treatment we're doing for this facility will compensate for these areas that we're not, sending to the bioretention. So we'll, our calculations will basically overcompensate for the sidewalk that Jay's talking about and the pavers that we're adding to this to make up for those not being part of the treatment system.
So we typically try to be a little more flexible for sort of public regulatory, public works types projects because they tend to be a little more infrequent occurrences on the landscape. So the hierarchical goal here is safety and protection of the property and easy maintenance. And so what's the will of the committee?
So just for clarification, this variance request is, the intent is to still try and work it out with the fire marshal. So this is, should that agreement not occur, then this is the next priority two. Okay, thank you.
Yes, according to Logan and Roger, they would allow that at staff level unless I'm remembering that different, Logan. But that's
No, I remember that. You'd still need the variance for the sidewalk, I guess, being
sir.
in zone 2. But
Yes, sir.
So if we switch the sidewalk to something that's not porous, could you do any additional bioretention or plantings like he was described? Okay, so that could be a condition of a motion.
And I'll just make clarification on the retaining wall. It was originally shown without the retaining wall, and there's grading that goes on to what is Oracle's property. So I guess if there's an agreement reached between Kevin's client and Oracle to allow that grading on that property, then that retaining wall would be removed.
The one that's there now.
Right,
Yeah.
right, Kevin?
Yes, sir. I mean, if Oracle will allow us, won't build a retaining wall, which is kind of going to be a barrier in a way, and grade onto Oracle's, over the edge, which would be grading in the zone 1, which is part of our application.
Yeah.
If they don't agree to the grading on their property, then we build the wall.
So I appreciate you being proactive in coming here while discussions are still happening with the fire marshal, but I feel like there's still a lot up in the air, like not sure if the grading will happen with Oracle, not sure what the fire marshal will or will not allow. So I guess my question is this something that we should defer? Because it seems like there's still potential to not need much to happen here.
Right, except that I think our request is to allow it, and if we can work it out to where we don't, then no harm, no foul. But we're not. I'm not hopeful with Oracle from our dealings with them so far. So I think Oracle's probably not going to happen. I feel pretty hopeful with the fire marshal, but we would like to have that approval and not need it, as opposed to waiting and coming back. If that's okay.
Well, so, we'd have to be comfortable with, it's kind of the worst case scenario, sounds like here, if we're going to grant the variance. So that's kind of the bottom line. Because that's the contingency of approving it as presented, particularly given his expectations that Oracle won't be interested in collaborating. How hurtful would it be if we just deferred it to your needs?
It's a scheduling thing. The architects are designing this, and if we don't get the variance, then they've got to redesign. And so I think they would have to basically stop until they know what we have, instead of continuing on if we have the feeling that we are not going to get it, or possibly I don't think the client is going to want to continue to pay them to design something that they're going to have to undo. So it's a timing thing.
Did we leave in the head wall in your previous proposal to us?
The head wall?
In your first phase?
Yes, yes, sir. It's part of the approved plan.
That's what I first thought.
And I will also note that I forgot to submit my traditional comment that no species shall constitute more than 20% of the total. So I will ask that it be a condition of the variance, if it's approved, that they vary their species so that we don't have a monoculture.
That's fair. Well, it's kind of hard to set a condition on something that's another property owner controls. So, we're either going to have to be comfortable with less than ideal or defer it.
Clarification,
Yes.
if Oracle is cooperative, then your plan does not require a variance at this level. The staff can work with it, correct?
No, sir. It's, so the request is pavers or asphalt for the fire lane, a small pedestrian sidewalk. Those are our main request.
Right.
And then in addition to that, a very short wall along our property line. And so if Oracle says, yeah, we'll let you, then the wall goes away, but grading in zone 2, zone 1. Now, let me say, zone 1 is completely paved right now, so it's a big paved area.
Right.
So basically, we would take the paving out and put grass back in, which is obviously an improvement, but nonetheless, a variance that we have to ask for from you.
Was that included in a previous application, the zone 1 grading?
Yeah, wasn't it, Logan?
So
We had the
that-
caveat that if we are able to get approval, we get rid of the wall, but do the zone 1. But so it's one or the other.
Yeah,
I mean, we can
there's
just put the wall in and just not ask Oracle, and just leave the zone 1, but grading out of the request. If that, I don't mean to confuse you with any of this. Our request is fire truck access, pedestrian, and wall. We can just leave it that way, and to not be confusing.
What was your question again?
Well, there's mass grading shown in the zone 1, and then there's grading shown, if the wall goes away, they need to continue the grading into zone 1 slightly. And I thought that I'd heard that there was previous applications to the committee.
That was a different site.
It was a different
Yeah.
site.
Okay.
It's part of the land use
It's part of the
development.
same process. Part of what I was getting at is that, we did act in similar ways to what he's proposing in a previous site. That's part of
got
this
it.
development, so.
Got it.
So, I feel comfortable making a motion, but was there agreement on a suggested change to the sidewalk from the committee, at the will of the committee?
I mean, what was, my thought process on it was the floodway buffers are unique from floodplain because you can measure, you can survey it and get the floodplain, but floodway is so much more arbitrary, and you're looking at such high-level maps, and this is such a small encroachment, and pavers for a sidewalk would just require more maintenance. Since it's only pedestrian, it's not vehicular. And so I would think that the sidewalk is really harmless, especially because it's only a couple feet, and that line can very easily move depending on who's tracing over the FEMA
Right.
map. the grading is pretty minor, and you could even potentially tighten up the contours a little bit. It just makes it harder to plan in the Zone 1. So those two items, from my lens, seem pretty simple. The fire truck access is something that I feel like we could ultimately get by just because it's a life safety issue. But if you also go tell Joe that you got a stormwater approval to put it there, then he's not going to budge. And I would rather almost him not have that leverage. But those are the things that are bouncing around in my head.
We had a similar situation with a greenway where they were proposing either a gravel lot or porous paving for a greenway trailhead right next to the Harpeth River in Bellevue, where water frequently gets out of bank, and we allowed them to put solid paving there. So that definitely helps with your sidewalk argument. But
Do driveways require variance? If it's a crossing, is it just because this one's a dead end?
Yeah, if it crossed the creek itself, it wouldn't require a variance.
Can you extend it across the river?
It's part of the pedestrian bridge.
That might bust the budget.
I guess I do appreciate the fact that there is a lot of impervious area being removed on the side. So it is an improvement when we think about the ordinance, and it's a minimal amount of area that would potentially be impervious put back with the sidewalk and the drive lane for the fire truck. So I think that is, we've asked that a lot, at least this is my second time, about, the trade-off and the numbers of the amount of area impacted. So I do think it's worth noting that this is a human safety consideration, and there's a lot of impervious area. So there is an overall improvement to the site being achieved.
So since that foundation was just laid, I was going to remind us that it would be great if we could, as a condition, we can say if they could work out the grass paving, that be allowed. That'd be part of our preference. That would be kind of priority one. Priority two would be the fallback proposal. And then the diverse plantings, I think, was the other condition that staff requested. Typically, chairs don't make motions.
All right, day one, second motion. I'll make a motion to allow the grading as shown in Zone 1 if necessary due to retaining wall or not, and to incorporate the potential fire drive lane, and to allow the sidewalk encroachment to be a standard concrete. And for the fire access, the negotiations continue with the fire marshal in an effort to reduce the encroachment as much as possible. And the increased plantings, but I was trying to think through the material of the fire lane is the only amendment that I'd like to make to my motion after, if somebody has a preference on pervious versus not.
I'm wondering if the same problem's going to apply, with the fire lane as with the sidewalk. So,
then the amendment to the motion will be to allow grass pave, and if not allowed by the fire marshal, then it can be a standard pavement section.
Can we further amend it?
yes.
Okay, I'd also like to amend it to that there be appropriate markings and signage if it is a grass lane to ensure that the fire personnel know where to go.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So let me see if I can do this the way really supposed to do it. So we have a motion that has been made first to accept the variance as presented with adjustments to the sidewalk and giving them option of a solid paving surface if they can't work out the grass pave for more diverse plantings. So we need a second on that motion first, and then I'll go back to Dr. Camp's amendment to that motion. So
We need to add the specific 20% level, all right? That Rebecca asked for.
that was the diversity, yeah, that was the diversity comment. All right, so is it?
Second that.
All right, Ms. Stokes has seconded the first motion, okay. So now let's go to the amendment to the first motion. All right, you want to restate your motion? It was to,
He amended first.
did he?
He amended this first.
Yes, I captured his, and then you wanted to add signage?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so that's the current amendment to the first motion, all right. Is there a second to that amendment? Second. All right, we have a second to the amendment to the first motion for signage. All right, so let's vote on the amendment to the first motion first. Is everyone, is there any discussion on adding more signage? Okay, all right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed? All right, so the first motion is amended, so now we're voting on the original motion as amended by Dr. Camp. So is there any discussion on the original motion as amended by Dr. Camp? All right, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed? All right. Sorry about that. We're supposed to handle amendments one at a time. Friendly amendments are okay, but it's not really desirable. So I apologize for not doing that the first time this morning. But
As long as it's clear.
as long as it's clear, yeah. But I just want to make sure that, given the scale of this project, that we get all those procedural things done right. Okay. All right. So, Mr. Gangwer, your variance is approved.
Thank you. I think you need a flow chart for that stuff.
Yes, yeah, you certainly do, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, exactly.
Y'all have a good day.
All right.
And welcome new members, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you very
for your
much. Yeah, we've got some great talent on the committee, and you can tell it by the wisdom that we're getting on these motions. So, all right. So our next item of business is, we don't have any more cases, I know. All right. The introduction of Mr. Jay Fulmer, who has, I think, done a great job introducing himself, but been a very valuable participant this morning. So, Mr. Fulmer, would you like to say a little bit about yourself and any other comments you want to share with us?
Well, I've had the joy and pleasure of working with the Stormwater Department for about 15 years, and so I've seen a lot of different challenges and opportunities and needs for variances. So hopefully I can add a little bit of insight just from those. But glad to be here and flattered to be nominated by the department to be here. So.
And what are you doing now? You're in private engineering?
I am. We have a small civil engineering practice. There's a former Lucas Engineering. I started back in 2014 after being heavily trained by Carrie and all of her colleagues.
Good deal. And you're a good old West Tennessean that appreciates wetlands through duck hunting, right?
Well, originally from Memphis and went down to LSU for college.
LSU.
Moved up to Nashville afterwards.
Excellent. Good deal. All right.
A lot of swamp land.
Excellent. Welcome. All right. All right. So, Mr. Bowman, do we have anything we need to talk about? Okay. So, yes, Ms. Stokes.
Yeah, if maybe I could elaborate a little bit. I'm an old QA/QC process engineer, so We're always looking at our processes and ways that we can improve things. So as our staff run up against issues, and keep in mind, our SEM inspection program is relatively new. We just finished inspecting the first round of the 6,500 or so stormwater control measures in Metro. And as we went through that process, we're trying to identify what maybe we can do better long-term. So if you think in terms of the variances that you all adopt, some of those relate to ongoing requirements for facilities in perpetuity. For instance, a unique buffer width. So the way that in particular would work is that would need to be captured on the grading permit application plan that comes in to staff to review, such that it gets approved. Our inspectors in the field can make sure it goes in as approved. Then, very importantly, when our staff inputs it into our GIS resources that staff looks at when they inspect it into the future, it needs to be rock solid. Because, and what we're trying to do, and I mentioned it to one of the applicants, what we don't want is ever to reach a situation where it appears the variance condition wasn't met the way it was built, and have to make a very difficult decision if the site needs to come back before the committee. So what we're trying to do is sort of look at the process as what I call a TQC circle, where you're taking the people that are having to implement this in the field and circle back around. And the first point of that as it relates to variance sites is you all. So it's important to us as staff to just make sure those things are captured, that there is an official plan of record. That is probably the most important thing, because when you get into the heat of some of these cases, there obviously are a lot of things that need to be worked out, and just making sure that those get captured on the plan of record, because that can be much different than what Logan gets to begin with. So I think that's probably 75% of it right there. Then within our city work system, our plan review section can see the variances on that parcel. They can look those sorts of things up, and then it works much smoother. There's not really been, to address your point, there's not really been a major issue, but in talking to staff about it, and of late our grading permit inspectors, we would appreciate just a little bit of extra effort to make sure that plan of record gets reflected in the grading permit plan.
Well, do buffer widths go into the maintenance plans? Because my concern is a property sells and the new owner has no idea. And so the maintenance plans are recorded against the properties, and
I would have
nobody reads them, but they at least get
flagged. It should. We had modified the long-term maintenance agreement to include the buffers, because that's a valid point, and maybe even more so for the single families, so that when those are recorded, because the variances are not recorded anywhere. So it would be key, and that's what our SEM inspectors go back and reference, are those long-term maintenance plans that do get it recorded against the property. So when a prospective property buyer exercises their due diligence, they should see that exists on the property. So yeah, that gets in large part to where we're hopeful this can go. And just wanting to try to make our process a little bit stronger. We've not had any serious issues, but just enough around the edges that I felt like today it would be a good time to maybe just emphasize that point a little bit.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hunt. So that may be also something we can also add to this checklist idea that we've talked about, so we can all kind of have something in front of us to remind us to properly add clarity with conditions to these motions that we make. Okay. And then I know in the first River North proposal, we even talked about making some type of references on the deed of record concerning cut and fill requirements. Is that in addition to what you're talking about, a level that's above what you were talking about?
It's generally similar in that sometimes, especially with mixed-use sites, where the different properties can sell, but the variance looks at it in totality. So you're saying X amount of cut has got to happen. Once properties start selling, that can be a little bit unwieldy. It's kind of an apples to an orange, but still part of the overall fact that the variance decisions have to be carried forward into the future, not just through the grading permit being built and signed off on, but into the future then on certain elements for our SEM inspectors to make sure your desires are carried forth into the future as are applicable.
Yeah, I think in that particular case, the site developer was not really going to be the individual lot developer. And so they had an overall cut and fill ratio, and then they were going to apportion the cut and fills to each individual site developer. And there wasn't really a good way to track that without recording it in deed transfers.
And on that one, my understanding is, because I've seen some maps, we do know which parcels that relates to and which ones that doesn't relate to, and the project should be aware of that.
That happened to us on Capitol View. We got a bunch of uncompensated fill approved, and then another engineer adjacent to a store. Volumes.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of significance to that because that's one of the things that when it doesn't go right,
I don't think I've ever seen a comment.
it's impossible to resolve.
I don't think I've ever seen a comment like that prompt Mr. Lindsay to rise.
I was just getting ready to bring up Capitol View. Because we literally had started with an amount of compensated fill. And Capitol View is unusual in that it's not directly riverine connected on the surface. There's not a creek that runs from Capitol View to the Cumberland River. It's all underground. It's probably, the 20-foot diameter brick sewer that's, 120 or 30 years old. That's the connection to the river, and the river will back up in that line. And so, in fact, even to the point of permeable pavers, one of the early projects, one of the first, I think maybe the HCA project, proposed a number of permeable paver installations around the foot of the building. And we said, why don't we not do that? Because if that sewer line does back up, then you're going to get that stuff flowing across your permeable paver installation, and it's going to soak down into the subgrade, and let's just don't go there. But to the point about being careful about how we compensate fill as it relates to, in that case, I think there were like 5 separate project sites, and we were carrying over compensation from one site to the next, and we got down to the last site, and we're like, we don't have enough to compensate at this point, and so it was a challenging thing to work through. So I think when you're on the actual river itself, and there's some different approaches being taken right now. There's conversation. Mr. Potters has been involved in discussions about how high to build infrastructure, like roadway infrastructure, on the east bank. And that doesn't go just to River North or Oracle's properties. It's the entire way we look at the east bank, all the way down past the Titan Stadium and past their metals recycling facility and everything else. And we're kind of landing on a thought that what we ought to really be doing is building some of these roadways to like flood of record plus 2 feet or something like that. So we're looking at some more conservative standards for some of that. I mean, we've got the potential for some staggeringly huge and expensive developments on that whole east bank from tip to stern, and so we want to make sure that there's a good conservative level of protection through that area and the ability to drive in and out of there during a flood condition and those kinds of things. So. And the whole business of pervious, I guess it was pervious concrete in front of our biosolids building. That was one of the first places we picked up because it was pervious concrete, not permeable pavers. And during the 2010 flood, that whole area around our biosolids building flooded, and there was 6 inches of water standing on top of that band, that 10-foot wide band of pervious concrete that was installed in front of the parking area in front of the biosolids building, and it was forever fouled. It never drained again. Every time it would rain, water would stand in that zone, and so ultimately it was all taken out. And I think, did they install permeable pavers back in there now?
Yeah, and ironically, I was giving a presentation on LID, and I had to take off my shoes to walk through that flooded area as I was leaving my presentation.
Yeah, so that's what's led us to say, let's don't do a lot of permeable stuff in an area that's potentially likely to flood, because we know that the whole issue of what you do with storage area, and as a river comes up, it's going to deposit a lot of mud. And that mud's going to going to foul up the pervious or permeable installation, so.
And as the river comes up, so does the water table, and you don't have unsaturated soil to infiltrate into. So the whole purpose of having it be porous is defeated when the water table's right under your porous
Right.
pavers.
And absolutely, and that goes to the River North area as well, or anything along the banks.
Yeah.
We know that, for those of you that are familiar with the Wedgwood development over in Hermitage, the area where trees along the river were removed so that those homeowners could have an unimpeded view of the river, every house where trees were removed was subject to loss of bank. And many of those people lost upwards of 20 feet of their backyards, especially in 2010 as the water came up and filled that whole neighborhood with 2 feet of water around every house out there. Every house was built to the exact same elevation. And then when the water dropped quickly over the span of 3 or 4 days, massive amounts of the bank just sloughed off into the river. And it's the aerial photography of that area in the year following the 2010 flood was really, those people lost a lot of their backyard. There were pictures of little storage sheds that were cantilevered over the bank where there was no soil left behind underneath it. So the whole business of protecting those banks, is another reason why we're so judicious about protecting our floodway buffers and making sure that stuff stays planted. And you can certainly plant more vegetation in there, but a tree that's been growing there for 100 years has a lot more bank stabilization probably as a result of that than planting a few new trees along a bank. So.
Yeah, I think one of our greatest deficits in communicating the value of buffers is not having buffers that have value in and of themselves to the public in terms of more diversity of native species, more diverse beauty in fall color, more diverse scale and heights of plants to create some transitions. And, when you got buffers of hackberries and bush honeysuckle and privet, people don't really look at them as something they think about protecting. So the more we can, like the sidebar I was having with the first applicant earlier, the more we can encourage buffer sites to be enhanced, to have their own value, in addition to the value they provide for the stability of the stream and keeping it stable and keeping sheds out of there and putting plants in there to place, the more they'll stand on their own and not just as regulated, protected sites. So. All right. Anything else on the agenda? Okay. So I'd suggested to Mr. Bowman that we invite Mr. Mishu to come back, since we didn't get to thank him at the last meeting, just kind of recognize him, and so that kind of spoils the surprise since it's on TV now. But so we'll do that. But any other comments or questions? All right. Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to adjourn? All right. Motion been made to adjourn. Let's have a second. All in favor? All right. Motion passes.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.